angle is. And even if he's a lazy man, and the dude was most certainly that.
The Hollywood industry has witnessed some groundbreaking movies that changed the entire scope of viewers, and without exaggeration, The Big Lebowski happens to be at the top of it all. This movie, since its debut, has never lost its place, and for every scene, you can't be deficient of someone who narrates it all. But what if the scenes were only a small part of what happened while making the movie? Roll up your sleeves and let's take a walk as we uncover 20 weird facts that you never knew existed in The Big Lebowski. Number 1. Raymond Chandler was the major inspiration.
Fucking Santana. That creep can roll, man.
Yeah, but he's a pervert, dude.
Every movie has its source of inspiration and what drives its storyline. In recent times, we have seen books, gestures, and talks becoming an inspiration, so it isn't absurd that this movie has an inspiration. However, have you been told that the storyline which has been driving many people crazy for 25 years was a product of author Raymond Chandler's thought line? Raymond, whose works speak of volume and depth, has long been responsible for novels that capture crime stories, and just a glimpse of it keeps you hooked. He, for a long time, registered his extraordinary writings in the minds of individuals, so much so that it was impossible for anyone to get bored when they picked up any of his works. He is the brain behind books like Farewell, My Lovely, The Long Goodbye, and The Big Sleep. The story that wowed the world and has never stopped one bit was inspired by the riff of The Big Sleep and several of his other stories. So it is safe to say that Raymond Chandler inspired the film, and even the producers wouldn't deny it. Number 2. Several actors were considered for The Big Lebowski. The Big Lebowski, which came off as the lead of the movie, didn't come so easily as many had thought. Because it was a delicate role, producers were particularly careful about who would play it, knowing that a hint of bleakness in the character could alter the storyline in a manner that wouldn't attract viewers. The producers and directors devised a strategy to achieve their objectives. Lots of casts were approached, but every one of them either turned the role down or probably gave an unfavorable reply that didn't make any sense. Still, the movie organizers didn't give up. They were committed to excellence, and after thorough scrutiny, they achieved the best. However, before then, actors like Marlon Brando were given a head start. However, due to health issues, he was unable to accept the role. Poised for success, Gene Hackman, Robert Duvall, and Anthony Hopkins were also given a head start, but all efforts fell on dead ends until Huddleston was called forth. He auditioned for the role, and to everyone's greatest surprise, he surpassed producers' expectations. In a GIF, he was cast as Jeffrey Lebowski, and the rest, as they say, is history. Sometimes, one can stumble upon an opportunity that changes people's perception of them. After Huddleston acted in the lead role of The Big Lebowski, his name echoed in the confines of the industry, and within a short while, he became one of the most sought-after actors in the industry. Number 3. A Hollywood inspiration was solely responsible for John Goodman's character. It never ceases to amaze me how directors and producers work around the clock to deliver the best quality in a movie. Sometimes many wonder where they draw their strength from, but that is even the least of their problems. From coming up with a suitable cast to ensuring scenes have the best inspiration, it isn't something that looks easy. They deserve some accolades. The character Goodman, who brought a chill pill to the movie, was something that was encapsulated in the script, but finding the perfect inspiration was somewhat difficult. However, after several brainstorming sessions, they came up with something that was a perfect fit for the character. Walter, who is a bit different from his laid-back friend, the Dude, came with lots of characteristics, and honestly, it put him in a position to play the role effectively. He is an aggro lover of all things military and guns who has since trained to use them to his advantage. But did you know that all of the characteristics that gave him an edge in the movie were all products of John Milas's inspiration? Even though it seemed like a minor difference came along the way, the producers made a shocking revelation. Milas is one of the writers who contributed to the success of Apocalypse. He also directed Conan the Barbarian and Red Dawn. Needless to say, he is also a lover of guns and violence. The similarity is undeniable, and to be honest, it made the character so interesting to watch. Number 4. The Coens set aside the movie a couple of times because of scheduling. The Coens,
he seemed to sort of be able to perfectly embody this idea of this, woman who sings very sweetly.
Who are the sole recipients of the credit for the success of The Big Lebowski, truly did an amazing job, but at first, it wasn't given the rapt attention it deserved. Working on a script demands focus, commitment, and diligence, and if any one of these concepts is missing, the project will take longer than expected. This was the challenge that the movie faced in its early stages. The hands of the brothers were tied, and instead of giving it maximum attention, they had to go off and on with it. Joel and Ethan began working on the script for The Big Lebowski around the same time they were working on the script for Barton Fink. How they managed to put up with both projects in the first place before surrendering up until now seems like a mystery to the cast members. However, they did, but along the way their attention was divided, and they needed to move at a faster pace, which meant they would focus on only one project. After writing about 40 pages of the movie, they set it aside and paid rapt attention to other projects. This wasn't new to them, as they were accustomed to it, and it seemed like a strategy they had been honing for years. They continued doing what they knew how to do, and when the time came for them to get the gears rolling, Goodman and Jeff Bridges were busy with other projects. Again, it stalled the production of the movie, and the brothers continued with another project, Fargo, which took up much of their time. Nevertheless, after all was said and done, they concluded that they would get the cameras rolling for The Big Lebowski, and when they did, it became a worldwide sensation. Number 5. The movie sponsored a festival.
For just a second, I thought that Jeff had Donnie's ashes in his left hand.
Not every movie inspires people to the extent that they name a festival after it, but if it does, it becomes a template by which many others are leveraged upon. The Big Lebowski wasn't just a movie, it was a hit that changed the perception of viewers and passers-by. The memories lived in the minds of everyone, such that it would have been a taboo if a day commemorating something about it were not introduced. Did you know that an event called Lebowski Fest was held in the past, celebrating the aftermath of the movie? Beginning in 2022, an event called Lebowski Fest has been held in Louisville, Kentucky. It is always an avenue to reflect on the wonders of Lebowski, and trust me, it is worth it. On that day, people dress in costumes, bowl, drink White Russians, and participate in various contests. It was a day everyone looked forward to, and when that day arrived, the excitement surpassed anything one could think of. The original event was even a success to the extent that it expanded to different cities across the globe. The 2007 edition came with lots of surprises. Even Bridges made an unexpected appearance at the Los Angeles Lebowski Fest. Isn't it amazing? Do you know that there is a religion called Dudeism that became something doable from the movie? We'll talk about that another time, and for now let's draw the curtain. Number 6. Elliot's character was purely inspired by Chandler. Every character in a typical movie draws its inspiration from somewhere, and perhaps sometimes it is a product of the director's creativity. For a while, many wondered where the stranger's inspiration, Elliot's character, came from, and even when they couldn't pinpoint the source, they still loved every bit of him. Just to let you know, the famous character Elliot, who made a difference in the movie, was inspired by the prolific author Raymond Chandler. The Coens were lost in deep contemplation, discussing how they wanted a narrator because the main character often narrated a handful of Chandler's stories. So they did a bit of investigation, and after much research, they came up with something superb. However, instead of following exactly how the author's story captured it, they decided to have it be someone outside the story. And when they pulled all the strings together, Elliot needed to take that role. Amazingly, his performance was spectacular throughout the sessions. Number 7. The Dude was also a major inspiration that sponsored the Big Lebowski movie.
That is more than a film. That is more than a movie. it has become sort of an iconic, I would say, piece of Americana. Wouldn't you say?
Surprises are bound to happen during the production of a movie, and if not told, no amount of revelation could suffice for that. Sometimes you can't even tell why a particular character draws your attention that much, only that you are unaware of how it came to be. Well, unplanned meetings could change the whole course of a movie, and most of the time, it is for the better. Have you ever been told how the dude became an inspiration? When the Coens were seeking funding to create a masterpiece in their movie Blood Simple, they met a couple of individuals. Among them were Jeff Dowd and Peter Exline. Little did they know at first that their memory would give birth to something interesting. However, when the time came for them to leverage their creativity, they somehow referred to their meeting from a while ago, concluding it. It was later revealed that Jeff Dowd and Peter Exline were the inspirations for the Jeff Bridges character, the Dude, to the point that Dowd was even called the Dude and enjoyed White Russians while concurrently living a stress-free life. However, Exline once had his car stolen by a teenager who wasn't smart enough. He had left a homework assignment on the front seat, and when they followed it up, they were able to track him down. The Dude character was and is always one character you cannot hate. How he does it, nobody knows, but it is pure proof that some characters can change the trajectory of a movie. In this case, it was on the positive side. Number 8. A notable actress was chosen for Bunny.
I mean, I was absolutely clueless. And I remember going into the waiting room, and there was Charlize Theron and Liv Tyler.
In every movie, some characters are very delicate, and as such, choosing any one of them demands carefulness and thoughtfulness. The character Bunny wasn't just an ordinary one, it was one that, if not handled correctly, would alter the storyline's potency, which would eventually impact the movie's overall course. And when the Coens understood this, they employed meticulousness in making a final decision. Did you know that a notable actress was initially considered for the role of Bunny? Let me break it down for you. When the floor was thrown open for the cast of Bunny, Charlize Theron was initially considered. Charlize, who was a rising star and worldwide sensation at the time, came for the audition and performed very well. Unfortunately, several constraints came along the line, and what would have been one of the biggest movies of her career ended up becoming her nightmare. Even though she moved on, the memories were something she never wished for, but that's just the way it is. After Charlize was denied access to the final cut of the movie, Tara Reid was cast as Big Lebowski. Tara, at the time, was also plodding gradually through the pathways of greatness, and when the opportunity came, she hopped on it without further ado. Though she was not the first actress considered, she eventually went on to become a notable name in the movie. Sometimes you can't predict what happens the next minute, and honestly, Tara was a beneficiary of it all. Number 9. The movie housed some former musicians.
Look, pal, there never was any money. The Big Lebowski gave me an empty briefcase, so take it up with him, man. Yeah.
The world of movies is so broad that anyone can quickly rise to the top, even if they weren't plummeting in that field. It's interesting to know that even a short clip can become the core of a given movie when you least expect it. Not often do we see musicians straying away from their part to play a timely role in a movie. However, The Big Lebowski came with lots of surprises that need to be unraveled. Have you ever come across a scene with someone who has long become a voice in popular music? Not to bore you, but do you know that 2 musicians graced separate scenes in the movie? Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers appeared as one of the nihilists, and to a commendable extent he played the role so well, even though that wasn't his field. Flea, who is a founding member and bassist of the rock band Red Hot Chili Peppers, brought a whole different vibe to the scene, and if you didn't know him before now, you would have called him an actor. Just as he appeared in the movie, some other musicians graced one scene, and guess who it is? Do you remember the timeless American rock singer Amy Mann, who toured the world with her music in the 1990s? She also appeared in the movie, but this time not as a singer, but as a female nihilist who gives up her toe for the plan. Needless to say, Amy is a good actor, and many wished she had tried it often. Number 10. A nice car was changed for the prolific Goodman.
I want to mention The Big Lebowski because it's the 20th anniversary of The Big Lebowski. One of the best movies ever. Are you doing anything? Is it going to be commemorated?
Right before production started for The Big Lebowski, the Coen brothers envisioned many unforeseen circumstances, and when they began to reveal themselves gradually, they weren't surprised either. They ensured they had replacements for any mishap that occurred or any equipment that suddenly malfunctioned. And just to burst your bubble, did you know that Goodman's car was changed? This is how it happened. Jeff Dowd, who was an inspiration in the movie, drove a Chrysler LeBaron, so it was fitting that the dude would also drive the same car. But just when the scene arrived for the car to be used, an unavoidable circumstance pulled everyone backwards. When the Chrysler LeBaron was brought to the scene, it was nothing compared to the size of the burly Goodman. He was huge, broad, and his hands could cover a whole seat, so there was no way he could use the vehicle for its intended purpose. To the surprise of everyone, the Coen brothers threw out their tentacles, and within a few minutes, something else arrived on the scene. A Ford Torino replaced the Chrysler LeBaron, and with ease, the dude did what only he could do best. This happens to be one of the funniest scenes behind the camera that took place in the movie The Big Lebowski. Number 11. The clothes Bridges wore were actually a collection of his own clothes.
These were mine. Some of those T-shirts.
Very good. Usually they have costumes.
Well, the costume, Mary Zofri's the...
Most of the time in movies, the dresses cast members wear are provided by the costume department, and no member would deviate from this rule. This rule has always been a golden one, and regardless of your pedigree, you either adhere to instructions or forfeit your role. However, sometimes an exception just rattles the scene, and rules are bent for that purpose. Once upon a time, in the movie The Big Lebowski, an unfamiliar path was taken, and when noticed by the directors, nothing was done about it. Before Bridges met Dowd and began playing the dude, he had always seen life from his own experiences. Particularly, the experiences he went through in the 60s and 70s shaped his perception of life, and he has since maintained that path to the point that his wardrobe was greatly influenced by the incidents he faced. And when he was cast as an actor in the movie, changing to something else was quite difficult. And when producers saw that they couldn't keep up with the nagging, they let him be. Jeff came with a whole bunch of clothes from his closet, and to a great extent it helped him play the role comfortably. Today, many can't stop talking about him, but barely know what went on behind the scenes. He is seen as one of the best cast members in the movie, but little did they know that he was a man who preferred walking in his way and would never bend to any rule. Number 12. The Jackie Treehorn house has been part of so many shots.
No, that has nothing to do with it. Yes, the car made it home. You're calling me at home.
Certain scenes in the making of a movie require a special set, and until the set is obtained, it will be quite difficult to get a perfect shot. When the time for certain scenes came, the Coen brothers swung into action immediately, suggesting several sets to fine-tune their work. And just when they were almost giving up on the quest to make do with the suggestions they had, they stumbled upon a perfect set for the job. Are you aware that the famous scene from the Treehorn house has been featured in several movies? Although it has not been lauded, the house has been part of several projects that have been box office successes. The house, known as the Sheets Goldstein residence, is many directors' favorite when it comes to choosing a suitable set. Many who used it didn't have to swallow their reservations, but confessed that the house had helped them a great deal in putting certain shots together. Some of the famous movies that hit the box office had, at one time, walked through the corridors of this house. Movies like Southland, Snowfall, Bandits, and Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, amongst others. This house in the history of Hollywood stands as one of the ancient homes that have played a phenomenal role in the outcome of certain movies. Needless to say, more credit should be given to the constructors of the house because they made it happen. Number 13. The movie at the time was a worldwide sensation that many attest to. Quite frankly, not many movies will attain the status of The Big Lebowski and still maintain that pace for many years. Even with the tides and waves that plague the Hollywood industry, the movie has never lost its relevance in the eyes of viewers. This is, quite honestly, proof that the movie was not just an ordinary one, but a game changer that introduced a whole lot to the industry. Shortly after the movie premiered, many thought it would flop in the industry, but contrary to expectations, it achieved great success. Since the movie's debut, various names have been given to it, but nothing could stop the pace at which it became everyone's favorite. From being called a cult movie to a waste of time, critics couldn't stop its shine because it was flying on eagle's wings, and has since maintained that pace even after 25 years. Sometimes the movies you least expect to make a change just become an underdog that every other movie looks up to make it to the box office. Although a mixed review of $40,700,000 was made on a $15 million budget, it still wouldn't change the fact that The Big Lebowski was a hit at the time of its release and in recent times still retains a certain level of popularity. Many critics who joined the bandwagon of negativity when the movie was released, as time went on, came along and gave their support to the film. Number 14. Julianne Moore's accent was not actually an accent, but a genuine portrayal of oneself.
This big Valkyrie suit carrying a trident and I have to march. But, Joel and Ethan assured me that, the dorkier I looked, the funnier.
For some actors, connecting with a character often takes longer than expected, and even when they do, it can take even longer to find the perfect scene. This, to a great extent, has been the major frustration that most producers face, and because they have to make do with what they have, they just keep the gears rolling. One shocking revelation you need to know about The Big Lebowski was that Julianne Moore's accent was more than acting. It was pure proof of perfect delivery that resonated from within. Actress Julianne Moore plays Maude, the daughter of a millionaire, and when she was called upon to deliver a perfect piece, she did it without hesitation. When asked if she needed assistance of some sort, she declined, saying she was cool with the language and could hit it off in just one trial. In the scene where she had to speak in some form of accent while portraying a vagina art person, she effortlessly played the role without needing an instructor or guardian. The first time I did it, Ethan said to me, "I love that boarding school accent you do." I told him it wasn't an accent, it was an affectation. She connected with every aspect of that role, contrary to what the producers had thought about her. Today, Moore's prolific delivery stands as one of the most iconic scenes in the history of The Big Lebowski, but no one knew how she achieved that status. Number 15. Every scene for Jeff Bridges came with the same question.
It's a wonderful movie. I know I'm prejudiced. I'm in the thing. I love my...
Every actor is created uniquely, and each has their trademark that makes them stand out. It is something you can't take away from them, even if you squeeze them behind bars. For a long time, the directors wondered where Jeff Bridges had acquired his sadistic behavior, and when they couldn't get an answer from him, they let him be. Bridges, who was on low-key maintenance at the time, didn't care much about many things, but there was one thing he always looked forward to knowing before shooting any scene. At the start of shooting each scene, he would walk up to the directors and ask a silly question that was always annoying. Here is what he always asked the moment he came close to the Coen Brothers. "Did you figure the dude burned one on the way over?" Referring to the dude's prolific marijuana habit. This was his trademark behind the scenes, and no one ever starts shooting without the conclusion of these words. The producers eventually grew tired of his constant troubles and devised a way to respond to him. Each time he came around with those words again, the brothers kept a serious face saying, "Yeah, he probably burned one on the way over." And within a blink, Jeff would rub his knuckles in his eyes to turn them red and do the scene. This became a routine for him in every scene, and somehow it made him deliver his maximum in every part. Number 16. The actors were taught how to bowl by a professional bowler.
I fool the fox in the league office, but you don't fool Jesus. It's Bush League psycho stuff. Laugh.
Every movie clamors for greatness, and if it means putting all their resources to pull it through, they make it happen. The Big Lebowski didn't just emerge as a perfect piece as many saw it. There were underground works that contributed to its success, and one of them was the introduction of a professional bowler. Remember that, in the movie, the central characters are bowling buddies, but before they could get on set for that scene, it was necessary for them to be taught the rudiments of bowling. The producers quickly made some calls and hired a pro bowler, Barry Asher. Barry, at the time, was a professional who took his job seriously and never tolerated any form of excuse when on the field of play. He participated in some amazing sessions, and even after the movie debuted, they never forgot his lasting impact. One time in an interview, Bridges had to give his honest review, and trust me, he didn't hold back any of those words. He was a champion, one of the best bowlers in the world. Bridges and Barry developed a close relationship to the extent that he didn't hide anything from the actor. When asked how he got in the zone before each shot, Asher went into a 10-minute story, pouring his heart out to the actor. He narrated all in a beautiful piece, saying he would sometimes stand for 10 minutes before throwing the ball. So he's waiting for his mind to get in the right place before he winds up, and sometimes his mind wouldn't be there, and so he kept waiting and doing different things, ticks and twitches to get there. And finally, he had to actually go to a doctor and work on it. Number 17. When the script was first written, the Coen brothers had something different in mind about the Dude and Walter.
With high-profile guests like the U.S. ambassador to France, the brothers were made commander of the Order of the Arts and Letters.
It isn't unusual for scripts to undergo a series of changes while movie scenes are put together. The aim all along is to get a perfect match for the storyline. The movie The Big Lebowski, which later became a worldwide sensation, underwent several revisions before it became what it is known as today. Did you know that the earlier script of the movie saw the Dude and Walter as a couple? We know they are best friends, but they disagree constantly, and their bickering makes for some of the movie's entertaining scenes. But contrary to what we saw, it wasn't captured in their initial script at the time. The Coen brothers didn't see them as buddies but as couples, which they had modeled them to be. But after they went through it over and over again, exercising their creativity, they became dissatisfied with the initial write-up. We designed them so they would constantly be pushing each other's buttons, getting on each other's nerves, and yet still at a certain level really liking each other. However, when they saw through it, they discovered that the viewers weren't going to identify with what they saw, so a quick change was made to convey their idea properly. Thankfully they did. Otherwise, it would have been a different story entirely. Number 18. John Turturro took it upon himself to make a film centered around Jesus Quintana.
And good friendship, because I'm very relaxed with them, and I feel like if I show them something,
The Big Lebowski was a hit from the onset, so there was no need for a sequel at the time, until someone they didn't expect approached them. Before now, Lebowski fans had pleaded for another sequel, but the Coen brothers had turned a deaf ear. However, how they overrode their decision still comes as a shock to everyone. When they saw that the pressure was on them, John Turturro, who played pederast and star bowler Jesus Quintana, approached them, and they gave him permission to write and center his film around his character. Although this was a difficult decision for them, the Coen brothers, who were initially reluctant to support the movie, didn't get involved and kept their distance, as they didn't want their names associated with it. The outcome, which later became Going Places, featured Susan Sarandon, who plays a criminal freshly released from prison, as well as Bobby Cannavale, who competes with Quintana for the affections of a woman played by Audrey Tautou. Number 19. The movie was set during the Gulf War, but not based on politics.
Nice to meet you.
I'm based in Dallas for all of the NBC stations.
Oh. All right.
It is quite difficult sometimes to predict the actual time for the production of a movie, and even if you do, so many factors can come in the way, and one wouldn't know how it will eventually end. The Big Lebowski was a product of so many factors, to the extent that even the producers got tired with the different challenges they had to put up with. It was set during the Gulf War of the early 90s, but the Coen brothers weren't out to make a political statement. Even if they wanted to, the delicacy of the moment could ruin all they had labored to build. Rather, they needed something that made Walter, the dude's right wing, tough-talking sidekick, pop. This, at the time, was the main decision, as though they had done some pre-trial before now. In an interview, Ethan poured out his heart on why they had to go in that direction, saying that setting the film during the Gulf War was an opportunity to have Walter gas about something, and it's more attractive to make something time-specific than just the present day. Are you also aware that in one of the film's dream sequences, Former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein is even seen working at a bowling alley and handing the dude a pair of bowling shoes. Number 20. The acting looked like it was improvised, but on the contrary, it wasn't.
Saturday. Well, I have to reschedule.
Walter, what am I going to tell Lebowski?
I told that down at the league office. Who's in charge of scheduling?
Perfection isn't something you buy from the market. It is a combination of hard work, commitment, and charisma. The Big Lebowski saw a handful of them, and when several talks began to rattle behind the scenes, they were put in their place. After the movie premiered and went on to earn a spot in the hearts of viewers, many critics began to downplay the movie's genuineness. Actor Goodman had to set them straight. Even though it was obvious that the scenes in the movie were not improvised, many insisted that it was and did every bit to water down their efforts. Goodman didn't find it funny at all, but made them understand the rudiments of what transpired. "I had so many people ask me if it was improvised. I'm not that smart," he said with a laugh. "I'm not that good, but we got lucky and rehearsed for a couple of weeks before we started shooting. That's why it looks so good, like we're improvising." Goodman also went on to say that the movie wasn't something they did just to prove a point, but was done from a place of love and how they connected with every damn scene in the film. Trying to figure out why they went that far to speak ill about their efforts, he condemned everything they had said. He said the characters were drawn, and it made every role feasible with minimal mistakes. Not many actors can be plain with what happens behind the scenes. This goes a long way in showing you how character-oriented every cast member was. The Big Lebowski should always be given its flowers, not only for its efforts in screenplay, but also for how it helped change the Hollywood industry's perception of some of its actors. Today, everyone celebrates the timeless efforts of all the cast members and directors, but little did they know that before it premiered, they had to go through some of its most challenging stages, which many of its contemporaries wouldn't survive. Which of these facts amuses you, and why is that so? Please let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as there are many amazing videos for you.